The case with censorship, delays, copyright problems, and movies being in limbo, I believe, is an active discussion today. With Satluj and the whirlwind that it went through with its release being available on ZEE5 for approximately 48 hours, and the government contemplating creating a censor certificate for OTT releases too, it really made me wonder about other releases that are struggling to see the light of day due to various reasons. Just on a side note, I have to tell you that the censor certificate from the CBFC is only required if a movie is an Indian theatrical release, and that the government insists on self-regulation by the streaming platforms. The CBFC as of now has no say to any releases on streaming platforms, at least that's for now. They want to change that as well. I stand by the stance that all movies, no matter how egregious they are with their politics, how one-sided, how problematic or balanced, should exist in the public domain so that the public can decipher what they feel about it versus a governing body dictating what can and cannot be seen. I mean, think about a movie like Phule starring Pratik Gandhi and Patralekha, a movie based on the real life of Jyotirao Phule, produced by Zee Studios, that had a limited theatrical release after delays and several problems with the CBFC. Why is it not available on the Zee streaming platform? Why does only a random uploaded link exist on YouTube? I think the censorship of content by a governing body not only is a slippery slope, but also reflective of how it assumes that the Indian audience is not wise enough to decipher stories for themselves. While the criticism of governing bodies like the CBFC and the INB ministry will continue, I want to discuss movies that are facing several roadblocks for a smooth release. Some of it is related to the oscillating foreign policies of the current government, some of it includes inflated costs that are leading to reshoots, some of it is copyright problems between parties who believe that they are rightful owners of the IP, and one specifically is about a project that is just so audacious that I believe a lot of these movies will never see the light of day and will be stuck in limbo, or we will see a Frankenstein version of it ultimately on the big screen. I want to talk about movies where the production company has already spent money on the project versus those that were merely announced. Before I even dive deep, I think it's very clear, guys, Jile Zara with the original cast is not happening. I know the girlies wanted their own ZNMD and it would have been brilliant with the OG cast, but the changing predicament of Excel and where the stars find themselves currently in their personal and professional lives just sets in stone for me that it is just not happening. Let's talk about some of the movies that have really gone through production hell right now. Kartik Aaryan, despite the criticism on his acting ability, has had quite the successful streak at the box office. Post Sonu Ki Titu Ki Sweetie, a movie like Chandu Champion aimed to provide a glimpse to the audience that Kartik can put forth a serviceable performance when challenged, but he garnered great commercial success with a terrible film like Bhool Bhulaiya 3 at the end of 2024. No matter what we say about the quality of these movies, sometimes they just ring cash registers at the box office. I mean, a travesty. Yes, a travesty like Dhamal 4 is raking in huge numbers at the box office, and I hated the film, so what do I know? In other news, Kartik has been often accused of collecting franchises like the Infinity Stones. This is the accusation that people have levied on him with movies like Pati Patni Aur Wo and Bhool Bhulaiya, and from the looks of it, it seemed like he wanted another franchise in his kitty, realizing that it is the recipe for financial success. And this is when news came that Kartik will supposedly be starring in Aashiqui 3, a movie that will be solely produced by T-Series and directed by Anurag Basu. What's very important to note about Aashiqui 2 is that it released in 2012 and that it was co-produced by T-Series and Mukesh Bhatt. This project was initially formulated with Tripti Dimri in mind, starring opposite Kartik Aaryan. And if you are chronically online like yours truly, suddenly articles started dropping on how Tripti may be too bold or too exposed for the role in Aashiqui 3, citing her popularity due to Animal. These articles, clearly a campaign of PR articles being planted, had Tripti unceremoniously leaving the project and Srilila being roped in for the film. This is a movie that was announced on the T-Series YouTube channel without even an official title. Still up on the T-Series YouTube channel, titled First Look with the thumbnail Diwali 2025, featuring Kartik Aaryan and Srilila, some sad singing and Kartik channelizing his inner sad and destructive rock star as him and Srilila stare at each other in front of the worst green screen. The film was announced in the public domain without an official title, primarily because Mukesh Bhatt had no association with the project, the owner of the IP of Aashiqui. The film carried on shooting, assuming that there will be truce among producers and that the film will eventually be released as Aashiqui 3, but to no avail. For anyone whose Instagram algorithm is all things Bollywood, suddenly they were seeing behind the scenes clips dropping on Instagram, where a shabbily dressed Kartik was walking on the street smoking a cigarette. So the film was being shot. Maybe it would release on Diwali of 2025, and then the makers got a curveball that they least expected. A little known movie called Sayyara released in July of 2025, becoming an unexpected blockbuster with brilliant songs with pathos, anger, and a terminal illness being main key plot points of the film. Suddenly everyone started to believe that if Sayyara, a movie based on a musician who falls head over heels for a woman with Alzheimer's, has become a big super hit, Kartik Aaryan's attempt at playing a rock star who falls deeply in love with a woman may seem like a derivative of the same. Suddenly the movie and all of its updates froze, and one wondered, is this movie ever going to release? There is brotherly feud between Mahesh Bhatt and Mukesh Bhatt. Mohit Suri said that he wasn't given enough time to come up with the story for Aashiqui 3 and they moved forward. And finally, no one really knows whether this movie will be allowed to use the title of Aashiqui 3, because I know very well that Kartik would not want to release a film that does not have the recall value of the title Aashiqui. Anurag Basu, in an interview in April of 2026, conveyed that the movie is progressing as scheduled and will release this calendar year. I have been on the rodeo of Basu claiming that his movie is on schedule and years having passed, so I'll take his statement with a pinch of salt. But I really do wonder, when will we get the next update from this movie? A movie officially announced in February of 2025, and now we are at July of 2026 and we have no idea what is happening. Kartik also has really gone MIA in the last few months, hasn't he? A new strategy maybe, to be known for the movies you do and the acting performances you pull off? I fully back it. Speaking of directors who take their own sweet time with their movies with such laser focus and debilitating but impressive attention to detail, we have Sanjay Leela Bhansali, whose last directorial venture in theatres released in 2022. After Gangubai, Bhansali invested a lot of time in Hera Mandi that eventually turned out to be a mixed bag and made Netflix invest so much money on the project that they did not have the courage or the bandwidth to renew it for a second season, even though they want you to believe that 2 years ago that they were renewing for a second season. All speculation, mujhe kya pata hai. A few years ago, no one believed that there can be a day where Anmol Jamal hates a Hrithik Roshan movie, but there cannot be a day for sure where Ranbir Kapoor will do a Sanjay Leela Bhansali movie again. And here we were, officially having signed a project with Sanjay Leela Bhansali on 24 January 2024, where it was planned that the movie starring Ranbir, Alia and Vicky Kaushal would release in Christmas of 2025. A movie which, from the behind the scenes photographs, came across as a romance set in the 60s and 70s. A period piece like Sangam, where both Ranbir and Vicky will be playing Air Force pilots, and the conflict and romance that brews in the triangle involving Alia Bhatt. A movie whose updates are not new promo songs or trailers, but is the ultimate release date of the film getting pushed consecutively, with reports claiming that Bhansali consistently was demanding more dates from the actors to extensively shoot sequences so that he can get the perfect final edit. Unfortunately, there was a loss of life with one of the crew members too. The movie went from a supposed Independence Day 2026 release to a Christmas 2026 release, but no one is going to be fighting Avengers Doomsday or King, and now is finally officially being released on January 21st, 2027, at least for now. I'm so curious about this project, on how it looks aesthetically, and if it is an official adaptation of Sangam, on whether the audience will connect with that kind of material, something that has been executed in a Hollywood movie like Pearl Harbor 2. A great cast, a brilliant director, but will it manage to create that epic romance we will remember for years? I cannot wait for more marketing snippets to drop, but any movie that gets this severely delayed is always a red flag. 90% of movies that go through such production hell and consecutive reshoots really suffer with the eventual form that they will take when it ultimately releases. The elephant in the room, of course, is the Ranveer Singh and Farhan Akhtar feud with Dawn 3 that I know will never get fully resolved, and I know will never materialize into becoming a reality with a different casting. This face-off has created such a wedge within the industry that I know Zoya Akhtar and Farhan may never work with Ranveer Singh in the future. A collaboration of artists that has produced gems like Dil Dhadakne Do and Gully Boy. A movie that was officially announced in the public domain on August 9th, 2023, a time where all the naysayers and haters came out of the woodwork that Ranveer would not be able to match the aura of Shah Rukh Khan as Dawn, a criticism that was levied on Shah Rukh Khan too when he was announced as Dawn, on how he won't be able to match Amitabh Bachchan in any way. While those with a practical brain and who are keen observers of artists with talent, everyone knows an artist like Ranveer Singh can pull off anything. I think the first promo also did not do any favors for Ranveer, a promo that was shot in an extremely amateur manner in a digitally rendered background that offered less of the aesthetic that the film may be employing, but was merely utilized for hype generation. This is a period in Ranveer Singh's career where he was really struggling at the box office, having only experienced a hit in the form of Rocky Aur Rani Ki Prem Kahani and having back-to-back flops since '83. If you remember the environment and perception of Ranveer during this time, he was associated with countless number of projects getting cancelled, and this led to him completely limiting his public appearances, primarily focusing on his work, his upcoming film Dhurandhar in the horizon, that was going through its own set of issues with delays, complications, and budget issues. The strategy and wait, however, paid off, and Ranveer Singh with Dhurandhar experienced a comeback like never seen before. But what about Dawn 3? One needs to understand that the power of decision making only lies with those who have experienced success with their last outing, and in the post Dhurandhar world where Excel was struggling and Ranveer was the most bankable star in Indian cinema, the power lies with the lead actor if there is nothing legally binding as per signed commitments or contracts, something that is still being debated. Ranveer cites a script just not being delivered even after 2 years. Excel claimed that they were locked and ready after recce and pre-production. No financial settlement still has been agreed, and finally we are still at a stalemate, and the inner Kaleshi Bua in me is finally happy that my old Bollywood is back where camps are fighting with each other. What will be the fate of this movie though? Do you think there will be a legal battle for years? Will Farhan with Excel's international funding actually make this film with some other actor? Will Shah Rukh Khan as a Silver Fox Dawn return, or is it too good to be true? Or will this, like every other Farhan announcement, will just fade and we will act like it never happened? In 2019, Kartik Aaryan was riding high on success. His breakout commercial success in the previous year, titled Sonu Ki Tetu Ki Sweetie, finally had him enter the big leagues and be considered for campaigns and leading roles with other production companies other than Love Ranjan. In 2019, he had 2 commercial hits in the form of Pati Patni Aur Wo and Lukka Chuppi, and Kartik had signed a project with Karan Johar, a sequel to the 2008 film Dostana. This was the movie that had finished a major portion of its shoot but had to deal with the pandemic. The team assuming that the left portion of the shoot will be completed by the cast and crew and it will release in theatres ultimately. Shockingly, however, in a statement made by Dharma Productions on April 16, 2021, which read, "Due to professional circumstances on which we have decided to maintain dignified silence, we will be recasting Dostana 2, directed by Colin D'Cona. Please wait for the official announcement soon." The movie starring Kartik Aaryan, Janhvi Kapoor and Laksh was indefinitely shelved. This made people insinuate that there was a professional fallout between Karan Johar and Kartik Aaryan, both of whom held a dignified silence on the same. Even though rumors spread and the media wrote several articles about Kartik's unprofessional behavior on set, making people assume that there seems to be a conscious effort to malign the image of Kartik within the industry, Dostana 2 since has gone through several permutations and combinations of casting choices. Vikrant Massey had come in as the replacement for Kartik. Advait Chandan, the director of Lal Singh Chadda, was roped in to direct but stepped away in a report published last month, and right now the project is in limbo, making me conclude that Dharma should just let this one go and assume it to be an L in their slate. While this still remains a mystery of what went down really, I've also come to the conclusion that friends and foes in this industry are transient. Dharma vowed to never work with Kartik in 2021, and 3 years later we got the gem that was Tu Mera Main Tera Tu Meri. That movie was terrible. So wherever the needle of success shifts, personal animosity and resentment can be squashed too. One of the funniest elements of Paresh Rawal's filmography is the passionate nature with which he hates the popularity of his character Babu Rao from Hera Pheri. Every time the iconic role and movie is mentioned to Paresh Rawal in interviews, he talks about how much of a trap it is when your character becomes so popular that people want you to do more of the same. And when I see promos of movies featuring Paresh Rawal, he ends up featuring in the most god-awful movies like The Taj Story and this upcoming Telugu remake starring Indra Kumar's son, where I genuinely wonder what's so bad about Hera Pheri comparatively. At least it's better than such mindless slop. Post Suryavanshi, Akshay Kumar was really struggling to get a hit at the box office, and while the tide has shifted momentarily this year, everyone was urging him to revive Hera Pheri, a project that had a promo shot and ready, but never reached the public domain, presumably due to IP ownership issues with the title, specifically with Feroz Nadiadwala. What's crazy is that in 2015, a Hera Pheri 3 was actually being shot with Paresh Rawal, Sunil Shetty, John Abraham and Abhishek Bachchan, a movie that was being directed by Neeraj Vora but was unceremoniously shelved while having shot a major portion of the film. A Hera Pheri without Akshay Kumar would have been blasphemous anyway, but the biggest point of concern for the audience was on who will direct Hera Pheri 3. Rumor mills floated that it will not be Priyadarshan directing, as he exited the project due to legal troubles and feeling disrespected from one of the producers, but it will be Farhad Samji most probably. probably. This becomes the biggest point of contention on who will be making this film, because that will be the make it or break it element of this movie. That will again be a wild ride of nostalgia, yes, but I hope it's much more than that. Akshay Kumar recently stated that the IP ownership of the film has finally been resolved, where his production company, Cape of Good Films, has the sole ownership of how Hera Pheri is utilized commercially, and right now, this severely delayed project has still not gone on floors, and we wait and watch on how it develops because it has taken the shape of Dawn 3, deep down setting in stone for all of us कि ये picture लग रहा है कि नहीं बनने वाली. Post the pandemic, Salman Khan has only featured in terrible to mediocre films. Even what was considered to be a guaranteed no-fail zone in the form of Tiger ended up being an average grosser. With Kisi Ka Bhai Kisi Ki Jaan and Sikandar terribly tanking, all the eyes were on Battle of Galwan on whether this project can provide some respite in Salman Khan's career in this downward slope of a career. And what this movie is dealing with is probably something you may have never seen in years in the industry. A movie based on recorded history, a conflict that happened in front of everyone's eyes is being instructed by sources from official channels to not mention the word China in its entirety. A conflict with China is not allowed to mention the word China. This has led to the makers of the movie heavily altering the film, not only changing its title from the Battle of Galwan to Maatrubhoomi, but reshooting a huge percentage of the film apparently. The result you see of essentially a war movie had been releasing just marketing material of romantic numbers, all presumably due to several changes the makers have been instructed to employ. I'm not at all insinuating that this movie was going to be a masterpiece anyway, but it's absolutely baffling to me on how the makers of this movie now have to be on their toes regarding the transient nature of global geopolitics, because a country could be our enemy in one year but an ally in the next. We have gone from boycotting Chinese apps and products to not being allowed to name them in a conflict that just happened a few years ago. So now the ultimate release date of Maatrubhumi is in a vague space in the cloud. No one really knows what is going on with it. Will it be an OTT release? Will it be completely scrapped? Will an odd version of it actually release in theaters, where one can't even mention that the Indian army was in conflict with the Chinese, a conflict that we can't talk about now because we are friends, because we may offend them, a conflict that has video footage? We are all just to assume that it never happened. In a recent update that just dropped yesterday, it has been confirmed that the movie may release in 2027 now. I just know for a fact that whatever will come out will be an extremely altered and censored version of what the makers set out to make. An absolute nightmare for any creative person to go through. पहले तो expectations ही नहीं थी, अब तो डर लग रहा है that it'll be some random love story set during the war with the ultimate message of Indi Chini Bhai Bhai. If there is one actor and his choices or lack of that truly breaks my heart right now, it is of Hrithik Roshan, a man who had the capability genuinely to be number one in this country if he was not just so hell-bent on thinking so much about his creative choices. Krrish 4 seems to be his magnum opus that he has always dreamt of, taking on the monumental task of directing it too. A time where Hrithik has a Ombale project on the table, a Lakshman Utekar directorial offer as well, he seems to be adamant that his focus should be on Krrish, a movie that is being backed by YRF, but can they really mount the project on the massive budget that he wants? Can YFX as a VFX company even deliver what Krrish sets out to achieve visually? I hope the case of Hrithik Roshan taking up the role of a director is purely by choice versus pressure. This made me also wish for a few things from this massive project. I hope there is a solid writing team on lock for this project. I hope the makers do not go in an overkill mode and cast Hrithik himself as the antagonist for this to become some megalomaniac Hrithik feast. As Hrithik is slightly older now, 51 years, I thought there could be nothing better than embracing the age of the superhero, slightly older and withered, much like Frank Miller's rendition of The Dark Knight Returns in 1986. So cookie cutter inspirational Krrish is, I guess, what we will all get, but nothing will make my heart more happy than a darker, more mature version of the same, only if this project materializes. Is Krrish even relevant after 13 years that everyone will flock in hordes to theaters? Should not Hrithik still act and say yes to creative projects being offered to him? Hrithik is so obsessed with Krrish that he seems to be just having horse blinkers on with every other project, putting all his eggs in this one basket, and I think this is a sign of self-sabotage versus a creative obsession that I can fully back. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below whether you have some video ideas for our channel. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.